All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Big Dog Brett. We have a very special guest with us today. We call him Trenches. You guys know who he is. But we have another special guest here we're really excited to have, and that's Mr. Brooks Austin, the film guy. If you haven't seen this guy, you haven't been watching social media, and odds are if you've read anything about college football, you have probably read an article by Mr. Brooks Austin. So thank you for joining the show, sir. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, no doubt, guys. Glad to be here, man, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of Mr. Brooks Austin. If you haven't seen this guy, if you don't know who he is, go check him out. He's on YouTube. He's on Instagram. He's on Twitter. Uh, this guy has great inside information. He's been in Sports Illustrated, the Miami Herald, the Charlotte Observer, the Kansas City Star, Sacramento Bee, the Wichita Eagle. He's been on a ton of stuff. So odds are, if you've read anything about college football, what would you say the past 5 years? I don't want to tell on you too much here.
Yeah.
You've probably read an article by Brooks Austin.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, a few months back, I did a very terrible film study, and I want you guys to know that the inspiration came from Brooks Austin. I wanted to see how bad I could screw it up, and I did a great job of that. Brooks Austin, him and his team, they get it right. So if you want to know a little more in depth as to what goes on, what a college football player who's played the game, what he sees, and from a coach's perspective, what they see, I would highly recommend you guys go check out Brooks Austin.
No, man, I do appreciate those words. It's kind of been. It's the way I wanted to shape my career. And it's not the way I wanted to originally. I kind of fell into it, honestly. But the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I realized that every single time I listened to a head coach, right? Guys that in college football are making north of $5 million on average in the SEC, right? These guys that know football more than anybody on this planet, or at least they're the professionals at what they do. Every single time when they get asked about something after the game by a reporter, right? The coach, 9 times out of 10, if he's asked about a player's performance, 9 times out of 10, the number one thing he will say is, well, first I got to check the tape. First I got to check the tape. First I got to check the tape. And as a player, we always remember that, right? Like we're always going to watch film on Sundays, and that's how we're going to evaluate how we played. Not necessarily the scoreboard, but each individual rep on tape. But then when you get into the media world, everything is narrative based, man. Everything is writing based. Everything is opinion based. Everything is, I think I saw it this way. Well, forever, everyone's always told you the film does not lie, but yet 9 times out of 10, media people are not looking at that stuff. So, like, that to me was the disconnect, and that to me was the area where I could identify with my audience base. Like, hey, look, your coach says you need to look at this. Let's go look at this, and here's what I'm seeing when I do so.
Yeah, and it definitely shows in the post conference. I think you're the only guy from media that Kirby hasn't been like, "That's a stupid question" kind of answer.
Dude, he tries. I mean, he's not always comfortable when I ask football questions because sometimes it's easier to just say, "Nah, Marius is hurt. We'll see if we get him back in 3 weeks," as opposed to saying, "Hey, coach, y'all finna spy that guy, right? Like y'all gonna spy him. Y'all gonna drop 2. Y'all only gonna rush 4, right? Like that's probably the game plan." He's gonna look at me and say, "Well, I don't want to give this jackwagon the game plan, nor do I want to give my opposition the game plan. So I'm not really gonna answer it." Like prime example, I am obsessed with becoming a smarter football observer. I want to become smarter. I want to know when I see something with zero uncertainty. That's what that is. I want to know it for a fact so I can relay it to my audience. So I asked him this year. It was a Tuesday press conference. So Tuesday press conference, he's a little bit more laid back. He's more traditionally able to answer specific to the week of preparation answers or questions, right? So my question was, hey, coach, how do I become a smarter football observer? Is there any literature? Is there anybody you recommend watching? Is there anything I can read, study, or learn? And he looked at me and goes, I mean, I don't know what you're asking. If you want to be a smarter football coach, get your ass on an SEC roster and then or on SEC staff, and you'll become a smarter football coach, right? And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, hell, where do I apply for an SEC job? Y'all hiring? Like, I don't know where to get.
Let me know.
So, yeah, for real. Let me know. No, if there is a smarter way to learn football, I'm searching after it. I'm seeking after it. I want to know.
what would have been hilarious is if you would have happened to have had a resume in your hand. And he just said, "Get on a football roster." I was like, "Coach, I'm glad you asked. Here's the resume. I'll show up next week."
Nah, next time I bump into him, I'll remind him of the question, and then I'll probably be like, "So where do I apply? You hiring at all?" I mean, then again, I look at some of the lives that these college football coaches live, and I don't know if I want to sign up for none of that right now.
Well, I know it's not SEC, but I hear Michigan's hiring an analyst.
I applied for the Iowa offensive coordinating job. That one was on Indeed, so I had to update my resume for that one.
All right, well, let's get into the real reason we're here. Let's talk some college football. That's what we all love. Christmas comes once a year. We love Christmas, but college football is all year round as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Big question right out of the gate. We heard here recently that Carson Beck said at I believe some type of book signing event in Athens that he was going to play in quote unquote the game. I think that's everybody assuming that he's going to play in the Orange Bowl. Correct. I would tend to agree with that, considering what we've seen, which is Brock Vandergriff transferring to Kentucky, and looking at what's potentially ahead of him if he comes back next year. So,
yes, I think this whole Carson Beck decision is, whether or not he's going to the NFL draft, whether he's going to come back for a redshirt junior year, is all based on sample size. Like I know that NFL evaluators look at the 14 games he put on film this year, 13 games he put on film this year, and they know he's a guy. They know he's going to be a first-round draft pick. The question is, do we take the gamble on him this year, or do we require him to go back next year to give us a larger sample size? There's this number that a lot of NFL evaluators are circling, and it's the number 25. 25 collegiate starts is kind of the threshold that they want for like real guaranteed success, or at least something that we can quantify. If you have this number of starts, and they've been really high quality starts in college, we can pretty much guarantee, or at least have a higher rate of success for you on the next level into that NFL level. So I think, honestly, whether or not he's going to go to the NFL draft or not, he needed to play this football game because it would be 1/13, 1/14 of his sample size anyways. Yep. He's only played 13 games. Let's add a 14th if we want to go to the NFL anyways, get a good evaluation point. So I think whether or not he's going to the NFL, he's going to play in this game no matter what. But yeah, the Vandergriff timing of that, especially with him already in the transfer portal, already having gone in and out at Kentucky now already, man, they could be left high and dry if Carson Beck decides ultimately to go to the NFL, which I don't think he's going to.
Since we're talking on quarterbacks, I do want to point out that if you want to get a very good in-depth review of the differences between Raiola and Puglisi, Brooks and his team put on an outstanding video. Yeah. They have their own metrics at which they look at and they rate these players individually. And it's nice to see somebody go through it, look at the tape, and then say, okay, we look at speed, we look at power, we look at athleticism, we look at the roof potential, we look at, how far do we think this guy can really go at this level? And they put all that together, and then they give you a number that they average out. And some things, spoiler, count twice, right? So if it counts twice, that means it's pretty important. And Brooks and his team take that into account. So go watch the video on Puglisi and Raiola. I think I got more information about Puglisi in that video than I had ever seen anywhere else. So that's a great video. And
big, strong kid, man.
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge. I had no idea he was that big, and I try to stay tuned into it, but
yeah, I think I don't know what it is, but I guess sometimes the Mass kids, like coming from Massachusetts, maybe just not getting a lot of hype. But it's funny when I talked to Ryan about his initial commitment to the University of Georgia, everything was about like he wants to find out. There's that meme on Twitter right now about fucking around and finding out. Right? There's this like graph. Ryan Puglisi thinks he's an NFL football player, like all these kids do. But the difference is Ryan Puglisi wants to know. Ryan wants to go to Georgia and know that, hey, if I win this job, no matter who it's against, if I win this job and I become the guy here, then I already know. I have guaranteed that I know for a fact I'm ready to go play in the NFL because I think I'm an NFL guy. So we hear all these kids all the time talking about, I want to go play in the league. I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, you got to find out first. You got to find out whether or not you're one of them guys. And Ryan Puglisi is coming down south to find out. And he's got one of them mental, mindsets about, I am not fearful at all of competition. And I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go and I'm going to find out. And if there's a 5-star that commits in my class, if he's the number 1 rated quarterback, says Trevor Lawrence, I don't really care. We're going to find out anyways. If I can't beat that guy out, then I wasn't going to beat him out on Sundays because there's only 32 of those guys in the world anyway. So yeah, I love the mindset from the kid on top of the fact that he's, 6'3.5", 6'4", 220 pounds, and is a really, really good athlete.
For those of you who don't know, a lot of people, when they see the highlights of Dylan Raiola, and I went to one of his games. I watched him whenever he played against North Cobb. This kid in high school has strength-wise and being able to throw the ball deep. He has an NFL arm. He really can.
Correct.
He can throw the ball 40, 50 yards. Seen him do it on a dime. What a lot of people don't know is not only can Puglisi do that, he can do it on a frozen rope.
Yep.
Like, Raiola's kind of got this rainbow, and it's beautiful to watch, and it's incredible how accurate he is with it. But to watch Puglisi just throw an absolute dart is impressive. So if you haven't watched that video, go watch that video.
It's the difference between horsepower and finesse. I think, and you need to be able to play with both. I think Raiola plays with this tremendous amount of finesse, but like you watched it, and I think a lot of Georgia fans listening to this have watched it, and a lot of Nebraska fans found our page and they were like, "Oh, here comes the spin zone from the Georgia guy." But here's the reality. There's a 17-minute highlight tape, and we evaluated all, I think, 12 minutes of the 17. There ain't a dig, not one, in Raiola's highlight. There ain't a comeback, not one. There ain't a tight window slant thrown, not one. There ain't the linebacker's up underneath that seam shot and the safety's over the top, so we really got to throw a rope in there. There ain't one of those either. And then you turn the Puglisi tape on, and it's like watching goddamn Craig Kimbrell come out of the bullpen and throw 105. It's like watching the dude throw smoke. So, and then you also find out that he's got all this other, finesse that he can play with. Maybe not as much as Raiola, but got a tremendous amount of finesse. I was talking to an SEC staffer about this the other day, and I didn't tell him who I was talking about. And I said, "Hey, let me ask you a question. All right, I watch a 17-minute highlight tape, and I don't see a dig. I don't see a slant. I don't see a comeback. I don't see an out. I don't see a seam shot. I don't see any of these. What do you immediately think about the quarterback?" And the coach looked at me in my face and said, "Well, I got questions about his arm strength." And I said, ho, hey, but coach, he's got 65-yard bombs on the highlight tape. He's got film where Raiola's throwing the damn ball 3/4 of the length of the field. So he's got arm strength. So why don't we see it? And that right there is the question for me on that evaluation. I know for a fact that dude's got an extremely, extremely powerful arm. I can see it in the air yards, but there is no velocity. There is no violence at all in any type of his throwing mechanics or motions or route tree. And guess what? On the next level, I'd say about half of your throws are going to have to be absolutely pissed on because there's tight coverage. So that's an open-ended portion of the evaluation for me on Raiola. And the other end on Puglisi is, can we play with the finesse? All right. Can we actually, layer footballs if we need to on the next level? Because I know you can hit a gnat on a horse's ass throwing 100-mile-an-hour. I know that. It's the other stuff I got questions on.
What I loved watching was whenever Brooks was going through it, and he goes, "There's one pass that Puglisi makes." And he goes, "That was an absolute pith missile."
Yeah, it is. I mean,
I loved it, dude.
Just absolute, just rods from that dude. He throws missiles, man, no doubt.
When we watch, and just my observation, whenever I watch Georgia line up in a double tight end set, which we will likely have, in the foreseeable future, Georgia tries to get that ball hot across the middle very quickly, very often. We've seen that throw to Brock Bowers. We've seen it to Oscar Delp. We've seen it to Ladd McConkey. It's about an 8-yard shot, and it comes off of that arm at about 200 miles an hour. And you have to be able to make that pass, and you have to be able to make that catch. And if you're not seeing Dylan Raiola throw that, I'm kind of wondering if he's looking at the playbook going, I don't really throw that pass a lot, and I'm going to be asked to throw that pass a lot.
So I don't think there's any question in his mind about whether or not he can do that. The only reason, like, this is something I asked him about at the Elite 11 in June. Okay, I noticed it on air in shorts before I ever saw him play football, like real football, that this dude does not throw the ball hard. All right, it looks great. It has a tight spiral. It arrives perfectly. He's tremendously accurate. He can do everything he wants from an arm talent perspective, but he does not rip footballs. Okay, he doesn't. And I asked him, like, in my opinion, those routes, what I don't give a shit if you're throwing it on air. I don't care. I don't care. All right. If you throw a comeback 15 down to 12, you better throw it, like really throw it. It better be able to like arrive with some violence. Okay. Same thing on first window slants. Okay. We take a 3-step drop. We're hitting the slant on an RPO. That ball's got to be thrown. That ball does not have to have an arc on it. That ball's got to be zipped. All right. Same thing for speed outs. All these routes that could be undercut, these balls have to be thrown hard. All right. And I asked him about it in June, and I still have the interview on my phone. I said, hey, man, like you don't throw balls hard. Why? Like you never throw a ball 100%. And his answer was, I don't do that. I throw balls at 85%. You'll never see me throw a ball at 100%. And the only thing I can think about as someone who loves throwing footballs, I have 4 laying around the studio right here because I'm obsessed with having a ball in my hand at all times of the day. The only thing I can think about is when I really try to throw a ball hard, when I really try to get up on one, 9 times out of 10, that ball comes out loose. It does not spin well. It's a duck. It farts on me every single time because guess what? I'm not a professional thrower of the football. I'm a 2%er, not a 1%er. I'm out here somebody who could throw a great ball on air at 85%. But when I really try to get one, that ball gets loose on me. It's the only thing I could think about as to why this guy does not do this, because I know he's A, mechanically as clean as anybody I've ever seen, and B, he's got the arm strength. He has it. So it's something on his evaluation that we literally, if y'all remember watching it, we literally put 4.75 out of 5 because he has the ability to do so. He just does not. So it's something that I have to imagine whoever coaches him on the next level will just have this ingrained in him. Anything working back towards me or anything working across or horizontally across the field, we have got to throw that ball with pace because it will be undercut on the next level.
Yeah, I think on the next level, and me and Trenches have talked about this at length, the speed of SEC defenses on the next level is, in my opinion, going from high school to college is bigger than the gap between college and pro. So if you can't make that zip between the tackles, it's going to severely hinder you. And I would also say that I would say his 85% should be more than enough to put that ball across the middle in a hurry.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Trenches?
I'll be honest with you. When I got that alert about Raiola wanting to go see Nebraska, my first thought was, okay. I'm at the point now. Look, I get it. We have to look at the difference between every quarterback. We have to figure out who's going to be the best. For 2 years, myself included, all the Georgia fans were complaining about this 3-star walk-on kid. Why is he starting? He goes out, has a perfect season, wins 2 natties. I'm at the point, I don't care who you put back there, and Kirby I trust. Until he proves me wrong, do your thing.
It's funny. When all this news came out about Raiola potentially flipping, I tweeted a simple statistic, okay? And this is the statistic. In his 8 years, 9 cycles, in his 9 recruitment cycles, Kirby Smart has signed 2 5-star quarterbacks, one being Brock Vandagriff, the other being Justin Fields. Those 2 human beings combined for a career 48 passing attempts at the University of Georgia. 5 stars, okay, do not matter. It does not matter what you are ranked. It does not matter what you are thought of when you come into this facility. It does not matter. What matters is performance, and what matters is processing and protection of the football. Those are the 2 things for me. Can you process? Can you protect the football? All right. Yep. If you can do those 2 things, you will start at the University of Georgia. Yeah. But if you go out and practice and you throw a damn missile right to the defense, you just dropped the spot, buddy, because we are a defensive-laden program. All right. We are a defensive-laden program at the University of Georgia. And if you turn the football over, if you can't read defenses, you will not play, period. So 5 stars don't matter. It's competition, it's accuracy, it's processing, and it's protection of the football. That's it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If I turn on the Orange Bowl and I see Jackson Muschamp trotting on the field, I don't even think I'm going to blink an eye. Like, all right, well, Kirby knows something I don't, so let's see what we got.
Speak for yourself there.
You cannot say anything wrong about quarterback position at UGA till he does something wrong.
Fair enough. I'm always reminded of the Keith Marshall, Todd Gurley comparison. You know, Keith Marshall came in as a high-rated 5-star. Todd Gurley came in rated as a 4-star. And Todd Gurley is one of the greatest football players I have ever seen live. Just electric. So,
look, I'll say it. I'll say it because I won't mention any names. All right. But I was on the sideline of a state championship game this weekend, and I overheard 2 competing ranking systems. You know, there's only 3, but I heard 2 competing ranking systems talking. And one of them said, hey, we offered so-and-so a 5-star ranking as long as so-and-so promised to come on and do an interview with us. So, like,
wow, there it is.
You have to understand, and this is the worst kept secret in this industry in the world. All right, the fact that availability and whether or not you're actually going to be readable, right, will increase your chances of being a 5-star. If you are some guy who is just some football player who never does interviews, never goes to camps, never goes to any type of events, never gets in front of a camera, but you're a 5-star quality football player, guess who's going to find your ass? Georgia. Guess who's not? Rivals 24/7 are on 3. They're not. It's not their job. Their job is to respond to how the other programs are actually doing their recruiting boards, how they're actually setting. So I have kind of talked about this ad nauseum on my channel before, but rankings do not matter. They have never mattered. They are nothing but a media click drive. All right. And here's another example of how this exactly happens. This offseason's coming up. All right. We are almost in January. All right. There is no high school football being played at all. There is no new film. There is no new camps. There is no new nothing at all. You will see rankings readjustments. You will see rankings readjustments all offseason. Well, how? I'll tell you what, I only see about 2 or 3 of these guys at camps when it comes to the companies that do these evaluations. I don't see the whole brigade. All right. It's just me and it's my boy Jeremy Johnson. And that's about it everywhere we go. Okay. So and guess who don't do nothing with rankings? Jeremy Johnson. Guess who sees more players than anybody? Jeremy Johnson. So, like, I don't understand the rankings. That's why I came up with my own metric systems. That's why we do our own big board. That's why we do all these things. Because it doesn't matter. I mean, how many times do you have to see Kirby Smart sign 3 stars, turn them into 1st-round draft picks, and people still hate on him for landing 3 stars? So, like, you just got me into a rankings little take there. But, yeah, rankings don't matter.
There's stuff about rankings that still confuses me to this day. Like, when me and Brett have talked about this before, Arch Manning.
Yeah.
You look at his numbers, and you're like, how is this kid a 5-star?
How was he the highest rated quarterback ever?
Yeah,
I'll tell you how.
Make any sense.
I'll tell you how. Our Texas site on SI.com had a 3-day span of page views, okay, that eclipsed their entire month the moment Arch Manning got in for backup duty against Texas Tech.
Yep.
Fox Sports released a 3.5-minute quote-unquote highlight tape of Arch Manning in that Texas Tech blowout. He had 3 pass attempts. They did a 3.5-minute video of it. Most of it was freaking handoffs. Okay, so like you want to see how these things happen is direct. And look, I'm a business owner that is paid directly off of page views. So I do not want to get it twisted. This is a very obvious play. It is the right one, and it makes all the business sense in the world. But as a viewer, you have to understand and take everything with a grain of salt that, like, these things really don't mean a hill of beans except for to get you to talk about them. That's my favorite. When someone runs into our Discord or when someone runs into my mentions on Twitter and it's like, blah, 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 rankings. And I'm like, well, buddy, they just did what you wanted them to do. They got you talking about those things. They got you reacting to those things. You clicked on it. And not only did you click on it, you sent the shit over here for everybody else to click on. So like they're doing their job. They're getting you.
Well,
But isn't that going to hurt? Go ahead, Brett.
That's one of the things that whenever, which it rarely happens, but if Georgia has a bad game, or if Georgia loses a game, and I'm sure you know this, my views go way up. All my comments go up. I get raised in the metric because every salty fan of every other team wants to come rub it in my face. Fine, do that. You're making me money. I'm okay with it. But that is one of the things that kind of opened my eyes that there's a lot to do with views. And so
views go up, paid subscriptions go down for me. It's just the way it is. I see I'll watch, but I'm not paying. Well, they lost, screw them. I'm taking my credit card out of the equation, but I'll give you my eyes.
I kept my paid subscription after that Bama game with you, but
Shouts
I will say though, I was watching the live stream after the game, and I think I saw about maybe 6-7 Dawg fans. The rest was all Bama.
Yeah.
But going back to the rankings and how they're kind of fluctuating, isn't that going to hurt Arch in the long run? Because if he goes out there and you get fans that don't look at the numbers of what he did in high school and they're expecting a true 5-star to come out there, they're going to start screaming bust after week 6.
I mean, his name's Manning. I think he was going to have whatever type of pressure there is in the world on top of him anyways. But no, I mean, you're right in the sense that that type of ranking automatically comes with expectations, right? Even in the Georgia space, like if you're not watching it, if you're just looking at the box score, Michael Williams would look like some type of disappointment for you. He's a 5-star football player that has, I think, 7.5 career sacks, like in 2 years. That doesn't equate to something that was his ranking coming out. But if you go watch tape on that joker, and if you go listen to NFL evaluators talk about him, if you talk to Georgia football coaches about him, he has done everything and more that they ever expected him to do as a football player, not as a box score racker, right? This isn't somebody that's going to rack up box score stats, nor is any singular Georgia football player. So I think the expectations of prior recruiting rankings definitely impede the immediate success of the players. Like they're immediately thought of as like, this guy better come in and play like a 5-star, when they don't always do that. But it's never, ever, ever, ever the recruiting rankings fault. It's always the coach's fault. It's always the player's fault. It's always the lack of development. It's never, ever, ever, hey, we probably shouldn't have ranked Clay Webb a 5-star. He was 6 foot tall. He was 285 pounds, and he was never going to play anything other than center unless he went to Jack State and became an All-American at left guard. If that's the case, then the ranking service was incorrect. Not Stacey Searles, Sam Pittman, or Matt Luke. It was the rest of them. Okay, but that never gets brought into the equation. It's always the player and the coach.
In 5 years, you're gonna have a bunch of Tate Martells running around going, I was a 5-star. What happened?
It didn't have anything to do with the fact that he was on a Netflix documentary, by the way.
No,
nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Nothing.
So I do want to point out for you guys that's watching today, if you get a chance, Brooks had talked about his subscriptions. There's a couple of ways that you can get additional content from Brooks Austin, the film guys. Go over to patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Sign up over there. I promise you won't be disappointed. These guys put out videos almost daily, if not every day, on YouTube. There is, what would you say, Brooks? Easily double the content over on Patreon?
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's unique about Patreon is that it's like it's a constant access point. It's a constant access point to not only me, but the other insiders that we have around the product. It's a constant access point to other Georgia fans. And it's very different than most quote unquote forums. This is not a forum. It's more of a live chat that you can get active on throughout the day. But yeah, it's on top of all the other stuff. You get additional intel, all the latest on the draft declarations. This time of the year, it's a lot of intel. During the season, it's a lot of additional film breakdowns. So it's a very unique product. And you can really only check it out, patreon.com/Brooks Austin. But nah, man, we do a lot of stuff over there. As we've been talking, I keep getting ding, 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 dings from our Discord service of people chatting over there right now. So it's pretty active all day. It's filled with a bunch of, like-minded Georgia fans. So if that's something you're interested in, I appreciate that. Shout out, boys.
Oh,
You gonna
absolutely.
snag me one of them hoodies. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say.
Hey,
Where
well,
can we
hoodie
get some of that
clean.
sweet merch, man? Where can we get this?
Hey.
Where can we get the swag at, man?
Hey, chill out. This is CEO only. This is CEO only. All right.
Killing us.
You know what? I'm gonna go get a shirt made just for Brooks Austin, and I'm gonna send
Hell
it to
yeah.
you.
We're gonna need during the off season a merch store pop up.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
I got a merch store. It's in the link of every description. It's I don't make a merch play. I've tried to make a play in every other facet that I possibly can in this business. My last play is the merch play, even though I do have some merch available.
So I'm gonna tell you guys, if you go over and you check out the merch, it's on it's on Players Play On, and my favorite one is this. It's a gray shirt. I like gray shirts. It's a gray shirt, and it just says "Shut up and grind the tape." And I think that's such a great expression to have, because I don't really care what you guys are talking about. What does the tape say? What can you go put your eyes on? What can you learn from? It's great that you've got stuff to say, but look at the tape, because the tape is the truth. I just
so
think
funny.
that's a cool way. I wish I'd have thought of that, but
Dude, I fell into it. I fell into it because I kept like, shut up, like shut up and just look at the tape. Shut up. And I kept saying that. I was like, shut up and grind the tape. And that's how I got to it. Just shut your mouth, stop talking, and watch. Just watch what happens and see if you can find an answer. And every single time, if you're a football mind, okay, I think a lot of people fall into this trap of, well, I can just watch football and I'll learn it. No. There was 18 years of cultivation before I just turned the tape on and tried to watch it. All right. But once you get to that point, that's all you ought to be doing. All right. You shouldn't be like, people will ask me after the game, hey, what are you going to ask coach? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm like, to be honest with you, I hate to tell you this, but I really got to go watch it. I really got to go watch it. So if you listen to my Saturday night questions, they're not near as good as my Monday afternoon questions, because by Monday afternoon, I know the answers. I know what happened, right? I know why it happened, how it happened, and how you avoided the correct answer to it, or how you found the right answer to the response. Those to me, man, those are my favorite moments when I'm watching something and I'm like, oh man, like prime example. People ask me all the time, hey, who are you a fan of? What are you a fan of? And my answer all the time is, I'm a fan of really, really good football. Okay. My favorite moment last year, favorite moment of the entire year, was watching the Smile Mondon interception against LSU. Okay. The tipped pass that he ended up kind of falling into. But the reason I love the play is because I watched Chris Smith and I watch him take a pre-snap key step. Okay. So before this ball is snapped, he takes one step down the line of scrimmage closer to the football because he sees it. He sees the RPO double slant coming to him. So he takes the one little key step, I'm only watching film. It's the only reason why I did this. And I take one step, and then that one step creates the entire play. And so I watch the play, and as soon as I see it, before I see the replay, I tell myself, I guarantee he took a key step. And then as soon as I watch the replay, he takes the key step. And I'm throwing my paper in the garage. I'm freaking the hell out. I'm like, whoa, let's go. So much so that my wife had to come out and like ask, like, you okay? And this is on a Sunday evening. This ain't got nothing to do with my actual job. This is stuff that I do because I love it. And I literally get like, woo, I get like giddy watching it, because I know how that kid found that, right? I know why that kid saw that. I know why that football player did that. And it was only due to work. That was it. It had nothing to do with he's a 5-star, had nothing to do with any of that. It had everything to do with the fact that that kid spent time studying that shit so much that when he saw it, he applied it. And that stuff right there, that gets me the goosies.
I just want to go ahead and thank you for the greatest stinger that I've had on this.
I was going to say, if you don't sting that and just put Brooks Austin's mean, shut up.
That's great. So absolutely. And shout out to Chris Smith for the unbelievable speed this guy has. If you get a chance, go back and watch some film study on just Chris Smith and his speed. You want to talk about just a lightning fast player. He knew that he probably only needed that one step that he took, that key step. That's all he needed. He is so fast. Okay.
Nah, he's fun, man. He was so fun to watch and so fun to study. Bullard was the same way for me. Is the same way. I hope I get another year of studying that guy because man, I love watching football players that just don't give a shit. They do not care what happens to them. All they care about is the outcome. All they care about is winning. And that's exactly what Javon Bullard is to me. Is the definition of I do not care. I am here to play football, and I'm going to make sure that I do everything that I can to make this play right here, right now. We'll worry about the next snap after this, but I have got to make this play. Those players, man, those players will always be mine. Like I will always hold that guy in a different light than the rest of them, okay, because he plays the game of football the correct way.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a couple more things here I want to try and knock out real quick. I don't want to hold up your day. I know you're super busy.
You're good,
you got
man.
a million things going on. If Beck comes back next year, do you think he could potentially go as number 1 overall quarterback? And considering what we're looking at the field, what do you think his potentials are for winning the Heisman?
All right, so let's just jot it out right here, right? So you got Quinn Ewers out there at Texas. We don't know what J.J. McCarthy's going to do, but we presume he's coming back. So let's just talk about him as if he is coming back. You got Shadur Sanders out there at Colorado. He's going to have a big year, you would imagine. And then there's Carson. I think those are the 4 quarterbacks right now in 2023 going into the 2020. That'll be the 2025
What
draft
about Jalen?
class. Who?
Milroe.
Jalen Milroe. Okay, we'll add him into the equation, even though I think he's going to get knocked for some inconsistencies with the throw and motion. Anytime I see a guy holding the point of the football, I get really, really scared.
Yeah, anyways, it's weird how he throws it.
Very weird. I talked to Aaron Murray about it, and it's part of the reason why Aaron and I are going to end up into a throwing competition this offseason. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to smoke his ass.
I got to be there for that. I've got to be there.
We're going to have cameras and everything, but I'm going to smoke him. Anyways, so these 5 names we got right here, right? He's not as talented, arm talent-wise, as Quinn Ewers, but he's more of a professional comp, right? He's 6'4", he's 230 pounds, mechanically clean, never makes any mistakes with processing the information. So I would rank Carson above Quinn Ewers. Now, the next one is JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy slightly more physically gifted than Carson, but it's going to come from a 2012 Stanford offense. Now, it didn't scare people with Andrew Luck. It's probably going to scare people with this guy because they right now at Michigan, I guarantee you they got a win-loss record that looks very similar to what Kirby had during his Jake Fromm years. If my quarterback throws the ball more than 30 times, we lost that game. I guarantee you, if you look through Michigan's game logs, you're going to see this. That's probably going to be something that withholds JJ from like that elite 1-1 evaluation. I don't think Shadur Sanders is going to be this, but I think he is a first-round draft pick. I think he has the abilities and the traits and the life in the arm, and he's deadly accurate, all those good things. I just think there are some physical questions about height, weight, speed stuff that's going to knock him from some of this stuff. And I already mentioned the Jalen Milroe stuff. Look, it's hard to be a first-round draft pick when you're completing 58, 62% of your balls, which is what he's still doing at this point. Now, that you can say that's a byproduct of the offense. They do a bunch of verticality stuff. They don't really ask him or give him the easy money underneath. I'm here with you. I've watched it all. I'm just telling you the NFL is going to have some questions about him. So, yeah, I think there is a legitimacy to the question of will Carson be a number 1 overall draft pick next year, or will he be the number 1 quarterback taken? I think, you can 100% say that there's a possibility for that.
I think that's where my confusion was. I didn't realize we were talking about who's the number 1, who has the best shot at number 1. I thought we were talking Heisman odds for quarterbacks. That's why I'm putting Jalen in that conversation.
Yeah, no, Milroe should be in the Heisman conversation for sure. Will be next year. The question for Carson and any Georgia football player, period, is, usually you handle your schedule weeks 1 through 0 through 14, 13, 14. Now it's 15 next year. You walk through it to the point where your quarterback's barely playing or throwing the football in the fourth quarter. Next year, that's not going to be the case. Next year, you got to go to Texas. You got to go to Tuscaloosa. You got to go to Ole Miss, which if you ain't been paying attention, they out here loading the hell up. So you got 3 road games next year that you would imagine are going to be highly contested football games. that provide an opportunity for a Heisman moment. So yeah, I not only think Carson's got an ability to be the best quarterback in college football next year, he's got a chance to win a Heisman too.
Well, if Georgia can manage to pull off just shy of 400 yards passing against Florida State, which I don't think is even in the ballpark of what we're going to do. I think we're going to come up way less than that.
Yeah.
He would eclipse Stetson Bennett as the most passing yards in a single season. I feel like if he had the additional game to play, he could pass Stetson Bennett. So for those out there who don't really recognize how many yards this guy has thrown for, he is about 160 yards short of passing Aaron Murray, which I know Aaron doesn't want to hear that. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Yeah.
But as far as UGA football goes, that's truly elite. And I feel like sometimes Georgia fans, they kind of miss Stetson Bennett now, but they don't recognize how good Beck really is.
And by the way, obliterated the completion percentage record.
Oh,
I think it was 68% coming into the year. I think he finished at 72%.
72.4.
Shattered it. Just crushed it. So, there's that.
Absolutely. All right, let's see here. Keeping it moving. Who are you most excited to see next year? Ooh. I know you kind of mentioned Javon Bullard if he comes back.
Yeah.
But Trenches is on pins and needles. He can't wait to answer.
I know mine. I'm ready to see Branson Robinson hit the field.
Yeah. I hope he's full steam. I hope he's full steam by August and September. I don't know if that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see 100% Branson until like maybe week 4. Okay. So I think you have to slow the expectations on that, unless rehab this summer just goes phenomenally, which when you're extremely quad dominant like this human being. Okay. So if your quads and your hamstrings are huge, if you have these big ass muscles, all right, around your kneecap, you tend to have a better rehab process because those tendons aren't relying as much as they normally would because your muscles are so damn big. So there's that for him. But for me, and this is a little cheat. All right, you can get this kind of information on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. I'm gonna throw this plug here.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure Mykel Williams is going to Jack next year. Which I can barely sleep at night thinking about this. Okay. This is gonna be something else. All right. So for years past, for those of you at home, your Jack linebackers, your outside linebackers, they have been Azeez Ojulari, they have been Nolan Smith, they have been Chaz Chambliss, with a little bit of Marvin Jones Jr. mixed in there. That's the last like 5 years of Georgia football for you at the Jack spot. Mykel Williams is nothing like those individuals. He looks nothing like those individuals. He plays nothing like those individuals. He has the ceiling unlike any of those individuals. In other words, what I'm telling you is that Georgia's going to do with Mykel Williams next year what the Jaguars drafted Trayvon Walker to do at the #1 overall spot, which is basically be the biggest disruptor on the football field for 4 quarters. Instead of being the best defensive lineman we have, we're going to make you the best disruptor that we have for 4 quarters. I am stoked. I am absolutely electric, like vibrating, thinking about the idea of Mykel Williams playing Jack next year. By the way, it opens up Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins to play defensive end. It opens Gabe Harris to play defensive end. It opens a whole bunch of doors at another spot that y'all been super thick at for a while. All right, and now those other guys get to play.
Yep. All right, Trenches. Besides Branson, anybody else?
I'll double down. Monroe Freeling, assuming Amarius Mims goes to the NFL draft. I'm excited to see Monroe Freeling next year.
I want to see. It's hard to say the improvement because he's improved every year, but Malachi Starks. I want to see what the final version of Malachi looks like.
That's a good one.
I want to see what I would like to see. What I'm hoping to see is I want to see Dylan Bell continue to become that guy, right? He's been so useful. He's been such a gap stop for Georgia. He's really shown what kind of athlete he can be. I don't know what they're going to do with him, where they're going to put him, but every time I see that guy on the field, I go, what's going to happen now? Where's the ball going? What's going on? He's such a wild card. He's such an X factor. I just love seeing that guy. Just see him in a formation. It's like watching Brock Bowers roll out there. I know something good's fixing to happen. So that's the guy for me.
I'm also interested to see what the offense generally looks like without Brock Bowers.
And
And
Ladd,
how much
he's
do they
probably gone.
change? And Ladd. How much they change? Do they change? How much do they feel like Pierce Spurlin is ready next year? You know, you've been a 12 personnel football team for a long time. I think a lot of that is because I know a lot of that is because Brock Bowers, from a personnel count standpoint, you don't know whether or not to count him as a receiver, an H-back, or a true Y. You don't have one of those anymore, but maybe you still remain in 12 personnel. Maybe you just jump into 11. Also excited to see whether or not Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett turn into what they were recruited to be. Like, they were brought into Georgia to be 700-yard receivers. They were brought into Georgia to be guys, to be straight up dudes. And they necessarily weren't that at times last year. I know Ra dealt with some injuries. Dominic Lovett, some continuity issues there early, had a couple key drops early on in the football year. And you'd be surprised how much that kind of subconsciously, removes you from sudden game plans. If you're dropping the football. So I'm excited to see whether or not those two guys develop into what we thought were top 5, top 6 SEC receivers when they came into Georgia. So we'll see if they develop into that.
Now, with those two guys, do you think Humphrey's a plug and play?
Yeah, he's talking about London Humphreys, the transfer from Vandy. Yeah, I think assuming, again, this is all assumptions, assuming Ladd McConkey goes to the NFL draft, which I don't know when you guys debut this, it might have already happened. Assuming Ladd McConkey goes to the NFL draft, London Humphreys will probably slide right in at the Z spot.
Yeah. I think that if you take, and just so Georgia fans know, so you guys don't have to go dig the stats up, if you take Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey away, you're talking roughly 1,200 yards in passing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a ton. And you spread that off, across, 2 other receivers, you can easily push those guys to 800 yards. I don't think it would be difficult to do.
And it's not even just the yardage, it's the concepts around it, right? Your offense has been predicated off of the ability to double move Ladd, right? Those were a lot of your explosives, him being a great double move wide receiver. And then really, really occupying the middle of the field with Bowers. So that those two removals of your offense, not just the 1,200 yards, but hey, we've lost some explosivity and we've damn sure lost a lot of attention that usually gets drawn that way.
Well, the good news is Delp and Lucky are no pushover. So
no,
we at least got that going for us to replace it.
Yep.
All right. Most interesting potential grab from the transfer portal.
I mean, I think you're going to be a lot less active than a lot of insiders thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason being, you're going to get a lot more football players back this year than I think you ever imagined you would be. That Orange Bowl is going to have more players playing in it than I think you ever thought were going to be playing in that thing. Because I think this year, more than any year, Kirby has really focused on his retention rates at the draft spots. Okay. Years past, like last year, why in the hell wasn't Xavier Sori in the portal last year? Why in the hell wasn't Nyland Green in the portal last year? Why wasn't Jackson Meeks in the portal last year? These are football players that we knew in December of last year were not going to be scraping the first unit in terms of the depth chart. They looked like football players that should be gone. Those were football players that they retained last year somehow, some way. And I think this year, if you're not a top 2-round evaluation, they're going to talk their way into getting you to stick around, I think, this year. So call it NIL, call it whatever you want to call it. I'm calling it retention rates. I think their ability to retain NFL football players this year is no different or no more impressive than their ability to retain Power 5 starters that were not on their roster last year.
I completely agree. All right. Let's get into the next and upcoming game here, the Orange Bowl. There's been so much that has been swirling around this game. We've had people losing their minds from senators or whomever demanding stuff. Listen, I'm not one of those guys. I understand that no matter what happened, there was going to be somebody in the football playoff that didn't get, or somebody felt like they shouldn't be there. There were people that felt like they got snubbed or whatever. Hey guys, no matter what happened with the playoff committee, somebody was going to be upset. I feel like they did a pretty good job. I think heads-up matchups matter. I get that there's an undefeated team and that you beat 2 SEC teams. That's great, but I feel like they kind of got it right. I mean, what else are you going to do with that situation?
I mean, I thought they did something for the first time from a public facing standpoint that I never see. Let's call it political figures. I never see people in front face do this, where they take the hard option instead of the easy road out. The easy road out was we have this undefeated Power 5 champion. Texas beat Alabama. Sorry, Alabama. If you want to get in, win the game against Texas and win it at home. You got beat by 10. They had an easy way out. And now they get into this discussion of best 4 teams. It's never been the best 4. It's never, ever been the best 4. Y'all never done that. So now you really open yourself for, well, who truly are the best 4? And how do you sit there and tell me that Georgia's not one of the best 4, right? So I saw a political committee, which is what they are. I saw a political committee make a frontward-facing decision that they knew was the harder one for the betterment of the outcome, which is what they decided that they should do. For the idea that we were going to have the best 4 teams, this is what we need to do, even though it's going to open us to a tremendous amount of backlash, even though it's going to open us to governors and senators trying to grab easy votes by suing us. We're going to do this because we think it is the right thing to do. And when I see public figures do that, I almost want to commend them, even though I may or may not agree with it, whatever. They made a hard choice, and they did it because they thought it was the right decision. And I'm here for that. I'm 100% here for that.
I agree. I think that whenever you look at what they could have done and look at what they ended up doing, they didn't give out the playoff committee ranking the way they did because they thought that Washington was more deserving or that they felt like Michigan was more deserving. I feel like they looked at the four best teams in the country and they said, okay, we've got 5 or 6 teams here that could legitimately be the top 4. How do we disqualify a team? Okay, well, we can go ahead and throw Georgia out because they lost to Alabama and heads up matters. Not to mention Alabama went undefeated in the SEC conference play and won their championship. And traditionally, the SEC is an overall better conference. It just is. The national titles prove it. They look at Texas. Well, you can't sit there and say Alabama deserves to be there and say Texas don't whenever Texas beat Alabama. So what does that leave you with? That leaves you with an undefeated ACC team that I don't think could beat Alabama or Texas or Washington or Michigan. And so I think that that's the way it went. I feel I'm okay with it. I'm a Georgia fan. We didn't get in, but I mean, I feel like that's the only way you could justify it.
My only disagreement there is I think Florida State could out-rock fight Michigan. Why not? Michigan, the last 4 games, okay, they've played 4 legitimate opponents in a row, okay? They have averaged less than 300 yards per game over those 4 games. They are
I don't disagree with that.
On the offensive side of the football. I
think part of that is that the playoff committee, because of their earlier rankings, painted themselves into a corner with that. And so that's the route they had to go. Otherwise, changing everything so much at the very end would have thrown every previous ranking except the final one completely out the window.
Correct.
I feel like they painted themselves into a corner. They probably wish they hadn't have put Michigan up there, but they did. So.
Yep.
All right. Orange Bowl breakdown. Quick and dirty. What do you think?
I think that any football team entering a football game with no signs of life offensively is in for a heaping of trouble. So I think Georgia, I think the line was like 12.5 when it opened up. I think I would take Georgia by like 14 points, especially considering I don't know what's going on with the fan base. My numbers say they don't really care. They're definitely not going. But this football team sure as shit seems to care about this football game. So when Georgia gets teams up, they tend to, beat that ass. So I'm probably going to go with that route here. I don't want to do it. I'm going to have to do it. I don't want to watch this Florida State team on offense. I don't want to do it. I don't want to break them down. I don't want to evaluate them. I don't want to look at it. I would imagine Keon Coleman's not going to play. We already know the other wide receiver, Wilson's not going to play. So, I got Georgia by like 17 points in this football game.
Yeah, and for an Orange Bowl ticket, just so you guys know, I mean, you can actually get tickets to this game for under $100. I mean, so
I
if
thought
you
you were
want to
going to
go,
tell me they were free.
yeah. Well, I mean, at least it's not a Panthers game, right? 45 cents a game
Yeah.
ticket. This particular game, I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking, I get the whole your backup's pretty good. Your second guy's pretty good. He hasn't played in a while though. I don't know how that's going to turn out for you. This is by far going to be the best defense they've seen all season. Not to mention, this is probably going to be the best offense they've seen all season.
Yeah.
Georgia fans travel extremely well. Pretty much everywhere we've gone, it's been at least a 50-50 stadium, unless it's North Bend, and then it was like 75-25. So I look at this game. I think this game could get away from FSU pretty quick. I think Georgia could win this game by 3 scores. I really do.
It's almost like playing an option football team. Like the moment you get up 2 scores, they're kind of screwed because they're not going to be able to score the football. I don't believe so.
Yeah. Trenches?
Georgia covers for sure. Now, this is one of the best defenses Georgia will face. I'm not going to sleep on their defense. Their defense is really good. That being said, I think the over-under is 44.5. If you're a betting guy, take the under. I don't think Florida State scores much. I think Georgia beats them like maybe 35-7, 35-10.
Are we 100% sure Jared Verse is playing?
I don't know.
Are we 100% sure the defensive tackle is playing? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I know Georgia guys, except for like we haven't even heard an official announcement from Brock Bowers. Like that's crazy. We haven't heard anything from Amarius Mims. Like, that's crazy. We haven't heard anything from Kamari Lassiter. That's crazy. Those are 3 first-round football players. They're going to get drafted this year in the first 40 picks. Those guys should not be playing in an Orange Bowl. But yet we haven't heard much from their camps. So that to me is a little weird. Other than that, everyone else is playing. Everyone's playing. So like you're going to get a 95% version of Georgia in this football game versus an emotionally distraught Florida State with like 3 starters out plus their quarterback. So I don't know.
I think a lot of Florida State fans who have come out of nowhere. They've been what I call closet Florida State fans. They've been closet Florida State fans for the past 10 years. And then all of a sudden they see that their team's doing well. They come out of the woodwork and then they get snubbed and they're like, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. And they just kind of walk away. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I genuinely feel like that. I don't think Florida State's going to spend a bunch of money to go down there and watch this game. I just don't.
No.
Well, if Georgia's fans don't travel, to me, that's sad. You just went 12-0 in a regular season, 8-0 for the 3rd year in a row in SEC play, and this is a New Year's 6 bowl. I get it. Not everybody's going to play, but this is still a big damn bowl. And if you don't think it is, go back to the Jim Donnan years and watch it.
I think Georgia fans are going to show up. I think there's a lot of fans like me who want to go out there and they want to put their neck on FSU and see, look, this is why you didn't get in. You don't deserve to be here. You won your conference you won your first conference for the first time in this century. Go sit down. Get better. Sorry your schedule didn't work the way you wanted it to. Too damn bad.
And is that their first time ever winning the ACC? Weren't they Big East before the ACC?
Yeah.
I can't even remember. I think they were.
But the last time these 2 teams played was what, 2002 Sugar Bowl? You got to show up for these kind of games. Like we don't, when I see a game of, like when we go to Texas, that'll be the first time since the time we lost to them. And I think it's like 2 times in 10 years that we got to play them. Those kind of games you need to wake up for. Whether you think you need to be in the playoffs or not, this is a New Year's 6 bowl. Go to it, enjoy it, root for Georgia.
The last time that they won a division title, was 2014.
That's division, not conference.
Yeah, that's not even a conference title. Now they won. They won their conference title this year, and the last conference title they did win was 2014 as well. But when you look across the past years and like, what have you guys done in the past decade? The answer is not much.
Nada.
I mean, think of it this way: the last time that anybody that has graduated high school saw this team win, they were in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest. That's not that impressive. And I'm sorry. I don't feel like they have the fan base that's going to show up to this game.
At least you're not a Gamecock. Last time they won anything, they were in the ACC.
Love it.
Well, that's pretty much all I've got. I do want to encourage everyone to go check out Brooks Austin, the film guy. Go check out his Patreon page specifically. Go over there and get a sample taste for what's on YouTube. And then go follow him on Instagram. Go follow him on Twitter. They got a merch shop for some great stuff. But one of the very interesting things that I'll point out about Brooks is Brooks has this, and I'm so jealous. He's got this television screen,
The board,
Epic. What's it called? Epic marker or something.
So I have an Epic pen and it's basically like a 55-inch tablet. And I do a lot of X's and O's drawing on that. You know, boys, every off season, you know, Pat McAfee calls it up to something season. I'm up to purchase something during the off season. A couple off seasons ago, it was that big old monitor, and it cost a fortune. And I put it in, and it really revolutionized our content. And then this off season, I had a dream to build a studio in a basement in my home, and that's exactly what we did. So I don't know what we're gonna do this off season, but I would imagine it's gonna A, cost a lot of money, and B, cost a lot of time.
It's great to watch Brooks do this because you get the feel. You feel like you're one of the players sitting in a tape review, sitting in film study, and you're watching it the way a coach would break it down, and you're seeing it in a way you've likely never seen it before unless you've been a player. And then all of a sudden, this light bulb goes off, and you go, I get it now. Now I see why the coaches and the players did what they did in this game. It makes sense now.
I mean, we've done a lot of talking tonight. That's hitting it on the head right there. The goal for what that's supposed to feel like when we do film study, all right, that is supposed to feel like you are a player in a position meeting room. All right, that is what that feels like, by the way. You are there for 3 hours. Coach is shitting down your throat for what you did wrong, and he is telling you how to correct it. All right, we don't really approach it that way. It's not as vile as some of the rooms that I was in college, but I'm glad that you hit that. And there's a lot of people that will hear that pitch and they'll be like, oh, man, I'm not really into the nuts and bolts of football. I'm not really smart. I don't know football that well to do that. My goal when I get in front of that board is to entertain, one, but two is to speak to the person who knows football at a kindergarten level and educate them while also speaking to the person that knows football on a calculus level and entertain them. Okay, so we are here to educate and we are here to entertain, and we do it every week over on the Film Guy Network. Hey, boys, I got to get out of here. I greatly, greatly appreciate you doing this with us.
Thanks, man.
Yep, we really appreciate you guys. Thanks, Trenches, for being on. Thanks, Brooks Austin, the film guy. Go check him out. You guys will absolutely love his content, and I will be seeing you guys soon. Don't forget to tune in and watch. We're going to be doing the FSU Georgia game. We'll see you guys real soon. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dawg.